When I was 20, I was diagnosed with the dreaded cancer, which actually turned out to be a gift. It taught me how to be a patient, and it also led me on the path of becoming a urologist.
We started the company, Perineologic, to provide a better, safer biopsy for men all around the world.
I'm Matt Allaway.
And I'm Kelli Allaway.
And this is our uncommon story.
Matthew and I met selling shoes at Nordstrom in Chicago. He was helping a mother and daughter. I'll never forget, he was helping a mother and daughter with a pair of shoes. But he turns around and looks at me, and I've got my clipboard. He turns around and looks at me and he goes, "Where are you taking me to dinner tonight?" Well, I was flabbergasted. He said it in front of a customer, which he shouldn't have done. And I'm embarrassed. I swear I blushed, which I rarely do. He only could work on weekends. He was in medical school. So he came in the next weekend, and he wasn't himself. And I said, "What's the matter with you? You're not yourself today." And he said, "I found out I have a recurrence of my cancer." Sorry. And I hadn't known him. This was the third recurrence, I think, at that time.
And it turned out to be a very rare presentation for testicular cancer. So I was like, I can't let this opportunity slip. Oh, there's Matt pulling the cancer card. If you want to get a little extra sympathy, oh, I had cancer, I'm going through cancer. I might have slipped that in too.
We went out for our first date, if you will. And then the next day he had to start his prep for his surgery.
She surprised me by driving all the way from Chicago to Indianapolis, where I had my last set of treatments at Indiana University.
We literally were never apart from that day. So we got lucky 26 years later.
I'm lucky to be alive because of advancements in surgery and chemotherapy. Instead of being 1990, if it was 1970, 100% chance I'd be dead. Urologists were a big part of the treatment team. And then I thought, I think this is the right fit. I should go into urology. When I get trained in urology, I'm going to try to contribute in some aspect to testicular cancer. That diagnosis of cancer was probably the best thing that happened to me. It taught me what it's like to be on the other end, to be the patient, that experience. And I think it really inspired me to just do a better job being a urologist. The way you diagnose prostate cancer is you've got to get tissue via a biopsy. And the way we were biopsying patients over the last 40 years has been you introduce a biopsy needle and it passes through the patient's own fecal material and punctures through their rectal wall and then enters the prostate. This technique of putting needles through fecal material, you're basically injecting bacteria into the patient's bloodstream when you do this procedure.
Some people aren't aware that a diagnostic procedure such as prostate biopsy actually can result in death, which is concerning. And even if it doesn't result in death, the experience of sepsis, blood infection, is very traumatic.
I started getting patients with sepsis after their biopsy, despite following all the guidelines. And I thought, I'm done with this. But I always knew that intuitively, if you went through the perineum, it gives you a direct shot at the prostate, not this unusual angle, but rather a perfect trajectory so that we're improving the diagnosis, so we're finding the cancers. Why not? With a proper device, which didn't exist at the time, you could actually, through a sterile pathway, enter the prostate. Then the risk of infection or sepsis should essentially disappear. It just was so obvious. I'm like, this has to be the future. And then Kelli's the one that really came up with the brilliant idea. She's like, well, you got to make some kind of a device that doesn't exist to do this. And then the old classic, sketch on a napkin. And I just started plugging away and experimenting and developing what eventually became the Precision Point.
We feel we've got something very important for the field and for men all over the world, that men are being diagnosed early enough so they can get the right treatment and they can get the cure that they need. We really feel that the patients will be the advocates for this change and this shift in mindset, moving from transrectal to transperineal. The patients will advocate for this, and they have. Cumberland has been the best fit for us. The health system has been wonderful to work with. The patients are they're kind and compliant and appreciative. It is important that we make positive impacts on the health and well-being of the people around us, not only the people in the community, but we're in 19 countries outside of the U.S., so we have made a global impact with this product. Perineologic, I believe, is uncommon because we're developing relationships with patients that we will never meet, but patients that we want to have the right outcomes, early detection, and successful treatments. And I could not be happier that I went on that first date. There are no regrets.